different types of subgraphs in Abinitio: embedded subgraph, linked subgraph, and dynamic subgraph. So we are one by one we are going to understand about each of it, and also we'll talk about the difference between these. Okay, so in first video sessions we are going to touch upon these two, embedded subgraph and linked subgraph. So first of all, what is the subgraph? So subgraph is a, so for the main graph processing, right? So it's a larger process graph, and in between there are subtasks, right? So we can understand like this is a sub process of a larger lengthy process. Okay, so if the parent subgraph is a uh, long process, right? So it has many components, right? So some of the components are doing the cleansing of the data, some of doing the enrichment of the data, some some of the components, right, maybe doing some validation kind of data. So we can divide this whole process from input to output as a, data validation phase, and then the filtration phase or enrichment phase and all those things, right? So we can create some if these subtasks are repetitive for different for different multiple graphs, then what we can do is we can create a subgraphs. And so there are multiple ways of doing it. Like for embedded subgraph is like it is embedded into the parent graph, so you cannot separate it out. Okay, and for the linked subgraph, so what we can do is we can utilize in multiple more other graphs also the linked subgraph. Okay, similarly dynamic subgraph is also can be utilized in multiple other graphs. Okay, we will have a single subgraph, but it can be used in multiple graphs, but embedded subgraphs can be used in that graph only, parent subgraph, because it's an there is no existence of embedded subgraph out of the parent graph, right? So that is the difference. So if you talk about the definition, right? So this is going to a simple subgraph which is not existed. So everybody might have created the subgraph. So the creation of this subgraph is easy actually. So you have a parent graph, and you understand like there are 3 to 4 components which are doing some kind of validation thing, let's say, or maybe some data enrichment. So you can label select all those components and then go to the file, and then edit, I think edit, and then label that all those these components. So if you look at this kind of if you want to see in pictorial view, let's say we have this main graph, right? Improve file, reformat, and then there are other components over here. So I have labeled it as a get balance. Let's assume that this is a subgraph. So within subgraph there are 3 components. Let's say it's doing roll up, doing sorted, and scan. These 3 components are there. So what I will do is I will select all these all these components, and then what I will do the right click and create subgraph, and I will give the label name, let's say get balance. So it becomes this one. Okay, get balance, and then output file. So this is my all this one main graph, and within that I have embedded subgraph like this get balance. Okay. Okay, and what is the properties of used to enhance readability and maintenance? So it enhances the readability and the maintenance of the groups. Everybody understand this is a get balance, or maybe in other subgraphs I was talking about, right? So there is a validation phase, enrichment, data enrichment, and all, right? So separate, we can separate out this process. Okay, if anything fails over there, so we just need to click on that subgraph and go there, right? Rather than going into each and every component and see what is doing what, right? So we can just kind of readability and maintenance perspective, we use the subgraphs. Okay. Now, so this is going to be very very simple, like embedded subgraphs. Then comes to the linked subgraph. So there is a this is very useful actually. So why it is very useful is like we can have a subgraph defined, and that subgraphs can be sitting as a component in our components folder of the sandbox view, right? In the components folder, this can be sitting as an MP file or MPC file, and we can use this MP file or this subgraph, linked subgraph, or this as a component to another multiple components, right? Multiple other graphs, right? So how we create it? can be created using the embedded subgraph. So you can take your this embedded subgraph and create subgraph, label it somewhere, and then file save subgraph as subgraph name. So this you can do it and saved in components folder of the sandbox. Okay, so maybe MPC or MP file you can save it. Okay, so that's how you create it. So for example, let's say these are my components, right? So I could give as a save as MPC file or MP file. So this object would be sitting under the components folder of the sandbox. In the sandbox, like we have a MP folder and bin folder, likewise we will have a components folder. Within that you can create and save the linked subgraph. So you can define the parameters, okay, and define the parameter in such a way that can be passed, the values can be passed from the parent graph, okay. So that you can do, okay. So that depending upon, let's say we have defined two parameters, right? So depending upon the value of those parameter, we can utilize this linked subgraph in multiple other graphs, right? So one graph can utilize this subgraph is another way, based on the parameters. Some other graphs can utilize this subgraph in some other way, right? So the basic inherent functionality will remain same, but we can derive this the process of this linked subgraph using the controlled manner, like using the parameters, right? Therefore, this is kind of very heavily utilized, actually, kind of subgraph, right? And we can say that we more generally we place this in a common sandbox, right? So then we can include those common sandboxes in other private sandboxes, right? That's the way we do, like so email send functionality is utilized in multiple more graphs. What we can do is we can create an email component in the sense of the customized email process we can create and place into the some common sandbox, okay, and that can be dragged from the components, from the common. We can in multiple more private sandboxes we can include that common sandbox, and then that component can be utilized in multiple graphs, right? So because based on the parameters, so parameter can be passed from the parent graph. So parent graph are different, so different parameters can be passed, and based on the parameters, the linked subgraph will behave differently for you know so uh, likewise we are going to see the dynamic subgraph also. This is very interesting, I mean dynamic subgraph, okay, in a different way. So in this video we have talked about only these two, embedded subgraph and linked subgraph. Thank you so much.